Hello, good evening everyone and welcome. I would like to welcome you all as we continue the Insights Design Lecture Series here at the Walker Art Center. My name is Emily McLaughlin and I am the Director of Communications for AIGA Minnesota. And on behalf of AIGA Minnesota, I would love to thank Asli, Mark, Jake, Laura, the whole Walker team for the extreme effort they've put into getting this off the ground this year. For nearly 4 decades, the Walker and AIGA Minnesota have worked in tandem to bring you the Insights series, bringing adventurous design thinkers and makers right here to the Twin Cities. If you'd like to volunteer within your local design community, I'd just like to mention quickly that AIGA Minnesota is thrilled to be hosting our annual Portfolio One-on-One this year, and student scholarships are available and the deadline is this Friday. So for more information, please visit our website or find me after tonight's lecture. Now I'm delighted to introduce the Head of Content and Communications here at the Walker, Asli Altay.
Hello everyone, this is a great house. Thank you so much for coming. This is a third and we are killing it this year. I'm so happy to be in person with you all. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the Walker Art Center and the Sculpture Garden are located in the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Dakota people. This site, which was once an expanse of marshland and meadow, holds meaning for Dakota, Ojibwe, and indigenous people from other native nations who still live in the community today. As Emily mentioned, we have been doing it with AIGA Minnesota for over 35 years. They have been a great partner. Thank you to them. Thank you to Shopko, who donated the printing of our posters. I mean, grab them if you're still out there. I think they're, kind of gone, but look out. Thank you both. Mary, you're killing it with that beanie. Thank you so much for coming here, ASLI interpreter. And yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about tonight's speaker before I invite him over. Sherif Can. I know Can for over 20 years now. I met him when he was 17, a tall kid, and I was, mid-sized kid. So we are both from the same dull, dry city called Ankara in Turkey. And, life threw us in different directions, and here we are today. So it's an extra special moment for us both, I think. Serifcan Ozcan is the Senior Design Director of Concepts and Graphics for Jordan brand at Nike, where he works with an incredibly talented team. For designers to define the look and feel of the Jordan brand products, design graphics, identity, packaging, and the conceptual development of seasonal narratives. And before his current role, he was the head of senior global creative director at Nike Sportswear. And they were, again, delivering global campaigns that extended to retail, events, and digital products. And before that, he was actually in New York and working as head of design at Wieden & Kennedy, overseeing, some of the biggest accounts such as Sprite, ESPN, Heineken, and Delta Airlines. He has received many awards, including Type Directors Award, Art Directors Award, AIGA, DNAD. Let me see. There are none that he didn't win. So we can move. With that embarrassing note, I would like to welcome Sherif Can to the stage.
Well, thank you, Asli. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my desktop. There's a lot going on, as you can see. It's a joke. It works well, I don't have that many stuff on my desktop. Hello, again, so nice to be here. Incredible honor and pleasure. Well, first, let's get the name thing out of the way. I'm sure you tried to read it in different ways. I don't know if you talked to each other about how it could be said, but let's do it this way. So most people call me Serif, but the actual way you read it is Sheriff. The whole thing is Sheriff John, which is read at literally like Sheriff John. And my bank calls me Serifcan, which is way off. Phone company calls me Serifcan. My son calls me John, which is accurate because it's the second half, but that's how you read it as John. I mean, I like Sheriff, obviously, because it's funny. And that was my grandfather's name. And he was a police officer, which is why I also like Serif, even if it's wrong a little bit, because it's serif, you know, it's typeface, it makes sense. So, okay, we got that out of the way. I was preparing for the speech, so, you know, this is a little bit of like, sort of a meta speech, obviously, where it's like my desktop and you see a little bit of the background. So this is kind of the process. I was like, I'm preparing the speech. And I thought, I mean, obviously, I'll give you, you know, you guys some context and talk about context of, you know, this speech and everything else. And then talk about beauty a little bit and what it means. And then, like, thought process, how I think and how I approach work. And then, you know, I was like, why should you listen to this talk? And I still don't know. Hopefully you'll come, you know, there'll be a good reason by the time we finish. And I'll ask you guys outside about it. And then I'll work at Nike, as Asta mentioned, and tons of work to show from there. So that'll be fun. And then I'll sprinkle some fun stuff. I'll sprinkle some fun stuff in there. I'll have some background of where I come from, and that hopefully that helps you put in more context. The harpsichord thing is a really fun thing. We'll get to it. And then what does it all mean? We'll see. So, all right. Context matters. I think I just wanted to, you know, put this context in place in the room before, you know, I show you guys stuff. When I prepare a presentation like this, you know, I'm here, you guys are here. You know, we clearly share some interest, otherwise you wouldn't choose to come here. And then there's, you know, people we know who are also, you know, in that context. And then there's everyone else, you know. So this presentation being that thing, it's more, you know, obviously context of like our interest, our shared interest, and then there's a little bit more attached to it. That said, this is the way I do this. I actually do it about every project that I work on. So like just thinking about who's going to weave it, why, what do they get out of it, why are they watching it, and what else is going on there in their life, and what does it mean to it. There's one particular piece of work that is very well tied into it, and that's the Eames Powers of 10 video. Normally in this speech, I would start playing this video, but I was informed that, have any of you guys been in the Insights talk 2 weeks ago? Yes, so, okay. 3, 4, 5, whoa, almost like 10 people, okay. So apparently he also gave the same reference, so I was like, so now I'm the outdated reference, which is why I went to Prem's Wikipedia page, and he is well known for referencing Eames Powers of 10 video as Volk Art Center 2 weeks before Serifcan Ozcan. There you go, Prem. Oh no, it's a Prem jinx. Kidding, but I'll still quickly talk about it. The reason, and I obviously the video is not out yet, so I haven't get to watch it yet, but I will. I think it's normal that designers reference this video. You know, we are in the context of this room, but like as you zoom out, you know, you see the city, you see the world. That's what the video does, right? And then it zooms back in. As designers, we get lost in the work sometimes, and you know every single space between a letter matters, and it does, you know, and it's important to care as such, but also not lose the context of 5 clicks above, and then not lose the context of 10 clicks above, you know, because there's lots of other things going on in the world, and being aware of how it fits, and then lots of other things going on outside the world as well. So that I deeply care about, and I think it puts the work in frame and in place in the context of everything else. That's why context matters, and that's why this reference. I occasionally do these sketches, which are really fun. I do them anytime I can. And then, you know, a dramatic love affair seen from outer space, or your lost temper seen from outer space. I find it kind of soothing to do these sketches of, you know, the planet from outside, and then you can write whatever you want, and the planet looks just the same. So again, it adds to that idea, and I guess, shows me that I'm really interested in this approach. Anyway, so I'll get to showing some work. It's always hard to pick what to show. I've been working at Nike for almost 7 years now, and got to work on some amazing projects. I narrowed it down to these ones, tried to find some sort of narrative. Obviously, I talk about context and big, like scaling up, scaling down. So with that context, the big one is the Air Max 2 720 launch. And then I'll show a small one and a series that are kind of connected but not. I'll show a heartwarming one and a futuristic one. So that's the Nike projects that we'll look at. The first one, I think is a special one because it was really fun. It's really weird. This is going to take a while. It's a really big one. But I never thought I'd get to create a fake department at Nike. So that's the story. I'll start from sort of the middle, but kind of the beginning. This was for initially a shoe launch, part of an Air Max, a new Air Max. I'm sure some of you guys are fans out there, but not everyone is. But the people get really excited, and people collect them. People have, you know, obviously, like, they know everything about it, and the depth of it is incredible, right? And I know that because I'm one of them. I've collected and worn them, and they mean a lot to me from childhood to growing up. So I thought it would be, I was curious before started working at Nike, what's in there. So the idea was simple and straightforward, like create a fake, it's a fake department, but we always called it semi-fictitious because there's no department called Department of Unimaginable, but the work is still there and everything, there are still some crazy things happening in there. So it was an opportunity to name it and actually show a little bit of that through the release of this new product. But we took this really seriously, to the idea of launching a new department. We come up with some ground rules on how we approach this project. I'm not going to read all of it, but you know, it's a secret, so it doesn't have a logo, and you should, you know, it's there, but it isn't there, so it shouldn't have a logo. So we treated the logo as a symbol of, like, if lost, you know, give it to this person, whatever, you know. So we put a phone number, a location, so it's like it's like a puzzle. And there's more context to it that's coming on it a little bit. But this was the graphics logo seal. We worked with an agency called Casper Florio. They came up with this crazy idea. They've hit a DNA mark to it, which is not that hidden, but the real hidden part is that, you know, so the circle doesn't complete, right? The proportions are same as the composition of air. So like this much oxygen, this much hydrogen, like, you know, so that's what it is. This is crazy. And here it is, actually, how it's broken down. So it was really cool to, like, add these little details. Again, I don't know if anyone would ever notice, but I think it's a part of, like, caring about what you do and putting the time and energy into making it feel special. The second part was the word mark. In the word mark, we basically, put in a property of Nike. This is probably a seal on some test sample. If lost, give it to this person, type of thing. And then that came together to compose the logo. So in this word mark, there's a few things. So I'll, like, just going quickly by one. The first one was this Latin phrase, which said, if you translate it, it says where the mind can be molded to build. And apparently it's a Latin phrase. We researched it, and that's how we put it in there. Again, like, we didn't want to put the name Department of Unimaginable because that says what it is. And then the second was property of Nike Inc. If found, please call this number. I've checked it a while back, but it should be still working. But in case you want to hear it, this is what it says.
Hello, you have reached Nike's laundry department. We are currently closed. If you're looking to pick up, please bring all 4 tickets. Your laundry will be ready soon. This message is finished.
Yeah, so it talks about some ticket, and it's very confusing. It says laundry. It ties into something, believe me, but it's going to take a while to get there. And then the last one was the GPS coordinations, and we're like, well, where's this, like in the campus? Because everybody at Nike knows where things are. And next to our campus, there's a forest, and it's a running trail. I run there all the time. It's really beautiful, and the center of it is completely unreachable. So you run around, it's a loop around, but it's like an untouched forest. And we're like, well, if there's a secret department, of course it's in the middle of it. So we put the GPS coordinate there. And then, so the way we work is like, I work in global, right? So I work with North America, Europe, China, etc. So all the teams, like we deliver a creative package of all the work. So I have to deliver that work to them so that they can understand the idea and they can execute it all around the world. So if we say Department of Unimaginable, everybody's like, well, what does it look like? So we have to explain step by step how. So which includes some of the work that you wouldn't think that we would be doing, but we did. Which is like, what's the architecture of the department? So we're like, well, it's hidden. It looks like this. It's obviously like we're trying to create a sustainable space. Material choices. And I know it's funny, but also you kind of use this in retail later. So it actually comes to a place where it is applied, and we'll get there. And then, again, material choice is particularly important, so it goes a little bit deep. And then it creates like an architectural vibe. Like there's exposed wires, there's experimentation, it looks modern, it looks cool, but there's some old stuff, it's this, it's the mix of some of those things, because we're like, how long this department existed? Like everybody asks all these questions, and we just answer all of them. So this was the vibe that we're looking to create, and we were going all the way down to, well, if there are tools, they're looking like this, if there's packaging, it should look like this. It's somehow technological, but some of them are, whatever. Again, like some old stuff, some handmade stuff, but also some polished and cool stuff. And then the typography, mood board, like it would look and feel like this. We develop a graphic language. And then like apparel, we went all the way down to like, some of these are actually real old Nike products that they're not, like we just put logos on them. I know they look funny, but they're from either different sports or experimentations. And then these are even older. So we were like, this department have always existed. So we've actually put the logo in really old stuff. That's what it was. And then going into further history of it, but basically saying like this department always existed back in the day, and actually all of these photos are real. Film Night's in the middle, and that's a factory they owned in Boston back in the day called Exeter. So it's all real stuff. And then obviously what happens here is a question like we're innovation. It's messy. There's sketches. There's thoughts. There's all this stuff. And then sometimes there's quirky things, and this is where we get to the fun stuff, as in like if we're gonna build this world around while we're creating this product, we're doing all these crazy experiments with product. And the whole idea is we can show some of these experiments to people in, or digital retail, etc. This is like a lot of this was a long journey that was expanding from December to April, so almost 16, and continues further after April as well, so like 6 months ish. So you have to plan ahead. What do you do? Which launches when? If somebody sees doesn't see the first thing and sees the second thing, do they still get the idea? Do they have to see everything? Which nobody will. So you have to like plan accordingly. We call this, we said like, let's try to do this orchestrated chaos. And this is what the chaos looked like. I thought it'd be cool to show some, behind the scenes. It was just really messy when we started. And then this was the somewhat orchestrated, and you can look at the, it's like February, March, April, like started organizing things, And then we planned it around, like we show some experimentation to the consumer without showing the product, and then we'll show the launch. And then after the launch, we'll actually do these events with in cities and different locations where people can engage with this idea of experimentation. Then, like with that said, like that's now I can show some of the work. The launch was super fun, and this was a long stretch, and I mean, it took so many people to figure this out and get it done, and I'm still to this day amazed that we went with this idea. So this is what happened. First, we dropped this comment. Not just on Hypebeast, on a few places. So if you see in the middle, the BR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rare, never before seen secret pictures from Nike. First look, exclusive offer, you know? So it's just, it looks like a spam. If you actually copy and paste the dou.com, it takes you to this website. And it downloads a file that is almost one gig to your computer. It's so shady. I'm so amazed at work. Like, you guys, it's incredible. And so that's the folder, right? So you open the folder, you unzip the file, and then it turns into this, this folder. You open it up, it's this. So the whole idea was a working folder from the department has leaked, right? I mean, it's fun stuff. And it's fun. Big thank you to legal team as well, because they had to clear all the image that needs to go through this folder. But you know, lots of like real old experimentations, etc. This one I want to particularly speak to because this is a real story, and it's personally my inspiration behind this whole Department of Unimaginable. That is a real elephant's shoe done by somebody working at Nike for an elephant named Bandula, who had arthritis because one of its legs were shorter. So this shoe balanced that short leg, and it's amazing, you know? So it just blows my mind. That's maybe one of the reasons why I work at Nike, and I love that story. So it's straight. So if you think about Department of Unimaginable, I think this, like, it's really cool. If you're capable of doing something and it's good, just do it.
Do they have an aerosol?
No, unfortunately, I don't think that. Actually, no, but hold on that thought. So like this, there's like tons of images and really fun stuff, some blocked out, some obscured, some newspaper clippings. We've actually did like a workshop with the designers to make ridiculous samples, and they loved it. And again, we just collected all of them, took photos of them, took videos with them. We created a fake employee guidebook for the fake department. These are some of the crazy shoe experiments, and inconclusive. This is another ridiculous idea that I don't even remember how it came through, but this is what we did. So this is, let me explain from the beginning. The whole purpose of this folder is there's 4 pieces in here, in different parts of this folder. And there's no explanation to it, but if you find those 4 and you combine them, you can put your phone on it and this stuff will happen, right? And hopefully you're already thinking that's ridiculous, nobody's ever gonna. And one of the tickets, the shoe's called 720, right? We created a folder called 760 something, well, I don't even remember what number, but you open it and then there's another zip folder. It basically counts down to 720 from like some crazy number. And the one of the pieces of the 4 is under 720. So you just have to open these zip folders within zip folders until you get to it. Crazy. I think I actually did it myself, the foldering up, as in like zipping it up because nobody wanted to do it, which I don't blame. So this is it. So that was 1, that was 2, that was 3, that was 4. These clues were in different places, and it was, you know, they all had their own puzzles or challenges. And once you pull them together, they form this shape, right? And then, believe it or not, guys, these are real. First one, I'm here to pick up my laundry. I have all 4 tickets, and I'm looking for the place where the mind can be molded to build. Which means this person went through the folder, found the 4 pieces, unzipped those folders, and then has all 4 tickets, which means he did the phone call, because the only 4 tickets mentioned is on the phone call. So he actually dialed the 1-800 number and translated the Latin word, you know. And there's more versions of it. I won't go one by one, but it shows that, like, you know, the interest of like this is massive, you know, and not to be underestimated. And as I said, I think I was one of those kids, which helps me do these, because I think it's not that you want the shoe, you do want the shoe too, but it's also fun, you know, and it's engaging, you know. So this 3 quotes I pulled. If you convert the longitude and latitude in Google Maps, it drops a pin in Beaverton, Oregon, Nike headquarters based there. I hiked over to the Hollister, that's the name of the running trail. No sign of any clues, tickets, fabulous prizes. The last one is the most amazing one. Before the trail was built, right through the middle, a former recorder was convinced there was a secret research. So like people started creating their own stories, which is fantastic. So this is what you did with it. Long story short, you basically, this was the shoes launch. You go to the sneakers app, you scroll up, and you tap open your camera, and it says start looking, and activates your camera. If you hold it to the ticket, it basically pops out the shoe, and it says unlocked. And then you click on it, and then you can purchase the shoe. And this was like this whole idea was just an early access. So if you did this, you bought the shoe, I think a few months or a month before it was released to public. But that's, you got an early access for doing all the work. This is like, we did a little video edit, which was kind of fun. So I'll just play that one really quickly.
Hello, you have reached Nike's laundry department. We are currently closed. If you are looking to pick up, please bring all 4 tickets. Your laundry will be ready soon. This message is finished.
Hear what I say, we are the business today. It's finished today. RT&J, we the new PB&J. We dropped the classic today.
I became famous for blaming you folk, naming my way through the brush. There was no training or taming of me and my bra. Live like a man, but I'm animal raw.
We are the murderers pair. That with the jail and we murdered the murderers there. Then with the hell and discovered the devil delivered some hurt and despair. Used to have powder to push, now I some pounds of the crew. Holy, I'm burning the bush. Now I give a f about none of this shit. You run her over and out of this.
I think I can just skip to the end. It's essentially like, it just shows the full process. It was incredible. I think there was over 250,000 people who downloaded the file, and like 40,000 or something actually went into the app and unlocked and everything. And there was only 5,000 pairs really like available for early release, so it was just gone really fast, and it was really amazing. And it was all in all, I think it was just the learning was that if you create a fun experience, people go through it. It's because they engage with it and it's fun, you know. This was a Hypebeast China article that pulled out the whole process together and just showed how it happened and how everything came together. So it's kind of nice to, like, you know, see all of it in one place. And then after that, that was, you know, before the launch, and that was, you know, it's a lot of work, but it was actually a very small part of the work. We did a social media launch. We did the seeding kits, as in, you know, you send it to a few people. It comes up with these stickers, and it looks like it's something that you shouldn't have received. And then we worked with a lot of artists and like started having them interpret the shoe in different ways. This is part of it is us doing it, part of it as the geos. I just want to clarify right now, and I'll keep repeating this. I'm showing a lot of work. I was the global creative director of Nike Sportswear at the time, responsible of, you know, coming up with this package, building it, and sending it out. But there's so many super talented people that take it and took it far beyond, you know, that initial idea, the seed that we've started, you know. I don't want you guys to walk out of here that I've done all of this. lucky to be a part of it and maybe hopefully initiated some of it. And because it keeps going, like so this was an artist in Milan. They take the idea of Department of Unimaginable, the idea of exploration in this lab, and they just started doing these crazy shoe experiments. The team in Russia took it to a whole other level. They did a full comic book, and it's so beautiful. And it's incredible the fact that they took it that far. They had a printed version of it too, but it's a full storyline, and it's basically every little thing, every little hint, every little description that we gave, they've delivered on it, and it looks really cool. And then we gave the story to Dazed magazine. They took it to a whole other level. They did these. They hired some artists, and they created these crazy artwork. This one, I actually have very, very little to do with it, but this was a part of that coordinated chaos, I guess. And it was just having different artists take the shoe and do their own crazy experiments with it. I'll keep showing it because it's they're all quite quirky. Department of Unimaginable. That's how everybody did their own interpretation. And then slowly the campaign started rolling out, and we started using the logo around a little bit more. Oops, sorry. And we started rolling out some of the experimentations that we created ourselves. So this is my core team. We worked on this together to actually build some of these experiments. This is where I don't know who asked if the elephant wears an air shoe. So this is when it happened for the first time. Obviously, no elephant was harmed in the process of making that video. And then we started releasing the product images. This one, I could say, maybe one of the most beautiful ones I've worked on to this date. The cool thing about this photo, a little bit of a process and the background information, this is a real image, as in that's not a CGI. So that was created in studio. And those large air bubble-like things, they're acrylic balls, and I'm gonna speak in kilos. Sorry, after all these years, I still, it's not, but they were 15 kilos each, which is lots of pounds. This is my excuse. We shot this in Europe, and the person who made the ball, acrylic balls, they, said it in kilograms, and I can't translate. So that they were really heavy, and it was really hard to set it up. But it was really fascinating to see. So the left one is actually in camera. I'm shooting it with my phone from the test screen, but it's literally what you see on the right and the left is untouched. It's the same thing, It's just the camera from another angle. And then obviously with the final images, we had to remove some of the pieces that hold the acrylic balls, etc. But I think this is when I can refer back to the Eames story of zooming out to a massive thing, and then once we're in this room doing this image, you just zoom back in and you just tune everything out and focus on creating this one beautiful image, and it's just about that, And that's, obviously there's different color variations, etc. So we had to do it with all of the shoes. And again, it's so funny as a picture in the grand scheme of things. How important is it? I don't know, but I still personally find it satisfying to look at. And I think that hopefully means something. And then obviously the work started rolling out. There were some digital experimentations. You can go into, you can do this digital experience where you can go in and start playing around with the shoe. You can mess and basically a digital version of this Department of Unimaginable where you can play around with the shoe. And then the Wyden Kennedy team actually created these TV spots or little spots that were really funny called Big Air Safety Training. So it's basically, again, joking about this idea of this department where there's all kinds of quirky experiments happening. That's Alex Chamberlain. It's a football player from UK. So basically, you'd go each one and get to see these funny experiments that are more live versions. This is a funny one. This is, I think, Jake Javalt from our team. He just did this Photoshop thing, and he was like, we're doing all these things. What if we go viral and it's funny, and we'll go somewhere, and what if somebody make this thing? And we laughed at it, and it would be hilarious. And this is real. This also, to this day, blows my mind that this actually happened. And the right one is, it's just somebody did it. And, we didn't hire this person, We didn't even show the image on the left to anyone because it was just a funny image to look at for us. It wasn't, it was just a part of our process. But it happened for real. So it's really interesting how, how those things come together. And then, some of these stuff, the line was just go bigger. So it was like these executions were clearly the line just go bigger definitely leads to it. But, it's pretty amazing. And then retail activations, this was amazing too. And this is this space was fascinating. This was in China. And this was the first space that kind of did the big launch. And this was probably the biggest, one of the biggest storytelling pieces. And it was a media launch. So you would go into the space, and I think this is exactly, I think, how I would have imagined it in the beginning of the process, what this space looked like, as in there's a bunch of old things in there. It's a mix of again, you're there for years. So there's like an old computer that you don't use anymore, but then there's some super modern new things, and then there's crazy futuristic things. And these are all digital screens, and the bottom is like a mirror, so it reflects. And I think this shows it really well. So you go through this tunnel, and on the other side of the tunnel is like this more modern area. And this is basically the full Air Max storytelling from the beginning to now. And they're all in test tubes, etc. It just talks about the history of from one shoe to the other. And then this is a part of the same, again, like some of the old experiments, the tie, it's a color and a material reference, but that's Air Max 95. And anybody who is walking in that room knows what that shoe is, and it's really cool. And the little Air Max logo is specifically from that shoe as well. So it's all these little hints and little jokes and little references. This was a part of the space where, again, like some of the old bits and the folders. You can see the dou.com link on one of the cabinets. So the attention to detail was crazy. But again, I think that's what it made it special, and that's what it made it interesting. And then let's go into, so now starting to show some other experiments from different places. Again, just thinking about the idea of just go bigger, going into taking that idea of like a big air bubble, because the shoe, that was the whole point of the shoe, right? It just had this massive airbag that goes all around it. This is a good experimentation of it, the giant bubble and the shoe standing in the middle. This was from, I believe this one was in New York. But it's like everybody almost in retail started creating these hidden lab spaces where you can go in and you can see a little bit of these experiments, and some of them were crafted, but there's a lot of real things in it from our archives as well. This one was a Russia example. Again, it's like they built a little space where you basically go into this door. You have to use the barcode. You have to sign up. You get an access, and you can go into the room. And they brought it really nicely together. And you can basically, oops, sorry. I thought the one left was a video. But basically, you can, sit down, go to the stuff, get a little bit of this idea of this space, and just get a little bit of this sense of magic of the process of creating a product like that. And then this was the Shanghai store. Again, it's taking the big air bubble, but putting it in front of the store. This was in Paris. This was all around the world, basically. I'll go a little quick because there's so many of them. There's some of these experiments that we actually built, where it's like it says chemistry of air. You basically go in and you can actually interact with some of them, and then you can This one was fun, whereas an air bubble where you have to force, like you can basically push it yourself. And then all the videos that we created were in many different places in stores and different video screens in different places, but basically just talking about this idea of like how we experiment and like the fun behind the scenes process of creating the product. This was the Shanghai store. This was actually like you can go up on the screen and pop air bubbles, and it would actually count the numbers. So it's like a game where you can actually, be on the top of the list. And this was the whole process of when you walk into the store, how do you get the idea of that experimentation? Again, this was in China. That idea of creating those test tubes and showing the history of Air Max, that translated from one store to the other or one experience to the other in slightly different ways. This was, I think, actually in Istanbul, hometown. And then obviously like the storefronts, those images that we work so hard on. I guess the best part is, we do pay so much attention to the detail, but then they do literally show up everywhere, and seeing them in that scale in these places, I worked in advertising before, so I'm used to like comping it up in those spaces like fake, but seeing it in all of these places in real life was really fun. But yeah, it was everywhere. And that was the launch of the shoe. Right after that, obviously there's a few other, like basically the month of March is usually there's an Air Max Day and it's a big celebration around all of those products. We started releasing some other, and we had to do some other work. And so we created some additional ones, like almost like deepening the storytelling, but going a little bit further into a storyline. So these were some of the additional graphics or the images that we created for the different shoes. We didn't necessarily have to create a different world around it. It was just like an extension of this Department of Unimaginable. And when those launched, almost the color palette changed a little bit and started matching the mood of that world. So this is some of those storytelling pieces. Yeah, so many people involved in this, and so much effort to actually deliver something like this all around the world and make some sort of sense of it. And again, like you could see one image, you can see one part of it, you can experience some other part of it. But overall, just the idea of going bigger with an air bubble and like having fun with it in different ways, that was the main idea. And the last bit, which that is a whole other story, is like this is the part where we started connecting in the cities, and that's when we let the kids try to do like their own experiments. Is we did little workshops in different cities and different places. That led to kids designing their own versions, but sometimes that leads us to pick one of them and actually produce it for real. But one of those experiments was in LA, and that was a fun space as well, so I want to quickly show that one too. Again, you walk into the space, it's basically a workshop space. Again, you get to the history really quickly. We actually built like a Ghostbusters-like car that was actually driving around in LA, which was super fun, and in the back it has property of Nike and then has the phone number. But that was the idea. So if you're scheduled in, you go into that space, and we gave you all the setup. You get lectures, you meet some of the designers, and go through this process of doing your own sneaker, basically. And then the last bit of this, which again adds on top, is we create a lot of editorial storytelling around it. I don't think I can go through all of them for time reasons, but I'll just quickly go through. I'll just play one of them.
Did you know each Air Max bubble is a time capsule? So what's in the air in 1990? Let's look inside. Germany is reunified. South Africa begins a long walk to freedom. Detroit's bad boys repeat, and the heavyweight falls to shock defeat. Tech booms in 95. A startup in Seattle ships its first book, Animation Goes to Infinity and Beyond. An auction site brings sneaker resales online, and the Air Max 95 crosses over from high performance to high heat. It's especially big in Japan. The Air Max 97, dubbed the Silver Bullet, is inspired by a water ripple. Jack is king of the world. Tiger is king of the fairway. Sadly, we see a princess die and a rap battle drive by. And the founding father of dad sneakers begins his final series, only to have even more reruns than the 97 itself. In 1998, that ringtone is everywhere. So is the one with the haircut. Cupertino is put on the map. A search engine becomes its own verb, and the Air Max TN is released with tuned cushioning. Air has evolved yet again, and the Air Max 720 is the tallest ever. For now.
That's a fun piece. Hopefully you got some of the jokes and the references, but I think the idea was just contextualizing this shoe for the next generation, and like if everybody can find something that kind of ties into like that history. So that was it. There's a few more things that I could show, but I think we've already seen quite a few of it. So I think like that was basically a gist of that campaign and the scale of it, from Beijing to Paris to US to like all around the world, and then just that crazy experiment in the beginning, which feels like an hour ago. But so it was so much work. For this one, I have this page that on the left is the core team. On the right, it just calls out the departments, and there's tons of people in those departments that kind of supported this project. And then these are all the external partners, from photographers, agencies, digital studios, etc. So it's just like, it takes so much people to do this. One amazing thing about this list and this place right now is Peter from that list over here is sitting over there right now. Hi, Peter. So we worked together on some of this project, and Peter lives here right now, and he's from here. So I just want to call that one out. So that's the big one. The small one is much smaller and faster. We will appreciate that. So we'll go really quickly. We did this really cool shoe launch for undercover Jun Takahashi, Japanese designer. We collaborated on creating a shoe called React 87. I'm not going to go through the whole brief, but it was very, just the last line, youthful ambiguity. It was like, what does that mean? So we looked at the shoe, and the shoe's really interesting, and we'll look at it in a minute. But the shoe is really abstract, and this was not a big campaign, not a lot of storytelling. It was more about looking at the shoe and creating a vibe and a feeling around it. And I personally enjoyed the word ambiguity in that one, because that gave us a little bit of like freedom to just do something interesting and beautiful, but not go like as deep as the other storytelling that I showed before. We worked with a photographer who was at that time, I think, fresh out of school, Justinas, super, super talented, and works with, it's still photography, but creates these really beautiful scenes in camera. And this was the work that we created. There's a few more versions of this, and I think it was very simple. It was just looking at the shoe, looking at the materials, taking some of those materials and finding resemblances and creating like ambiguous connections, I guess. And the shoe had multiple colorways. We named each of them, and this one actually, I forgot this. This is the best part of doing these talks, is like I got to go back and go through the process again. This one was called High Gloss Octopus. That was just the name that we've given to that look and feel. And nobody ever seen it. This is like our internal, creative process. But this was the other colorway. Again, like this, just looking at some of the material references. Some of them are really detailed. I think if you take the shoe around and look into it and then look at it, I'd be like, oh, I think the thing that's in here, it looks like that, which was the whole idea. And then they all came with like one shoe and a detail image. This is, again, also these types of collaboration shoes, they are in limited numbers. They go out and they sell out really quickly. There's no reason to create a big world around it. They have a very short lifespan, but we thought that creating this beautiful poster and a feeling around the shoe would be great. This was the footwear pedestals that how the shoe fits on, and like taking that idea from the image that we created as the base, like taking those pieces and building the pedestals around it. And then this was actually the undercover store in Aoyama in Tokyo. So basically just covered up the store with the images but made it translucent, and you can kind of vaguely see the shoes behind it. And this is how you see it from the inside out with the shoes in the front plan. This one was, there was already a lot of image going on outside, so the pedestals were simple. But in the Nike store, you can see like the pedestals have like a little bit more detail to them. And then the video in the background plays some of the image too. Just creating those images was a beautiful experience. And again, it's just like creating this opportunity to create this beautiful artwork that's, that kind of has a connection to the product, but then, sits on its own and doesn't require too much explanation. I sparkled some random projects throughout this presentation that'll just pop up here and there. This is one of them. This is really old. This is like, I think this is 2006. Bush was president, so this is pre-Obama. And I used to work at a design studio called Open in New York, and we used to do a lot of these editorial illustrations for New York Times. So this is one of them. And they were very quick turnaround, because it would, something would happen, and then they would want to put it on the paper next day. So they would call you on the day, and they were like, would you be up for doing an illustration for tomorrow? And this was about Bush's State of Union speech. And New York Times had this crazy study of the words he used most. So they did this infographic that showed all the words. And believe it or not, these 5 words were the most used words in the speech. And I thought it was really funny that that's the top 5. And then kind of saw some connection to it. So it basically simply says terror, see Iraq, Iraq, see oil, oil, see economy, economy, see politics, politics, see terror. And then it just loops back. And it was just this idea of like creating this like little dictionary about that conversation, that, that's that State of Union speech. Obviously, it's old and it's out of context in some ways, but I still, I feel good that I can look at something from 2006 and not think that it looks terrible. So that's the small project. And then now I'll show like a series that is connected to each other, but have their different takes on it. And this was for Air Force One. That's one of the most produced shoes and one of the most longest histories. It means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's fun to work on it, but also challenging. We were doing 3 Air Force One launches at the same time, and they all had very different looks and feels. The one on the left has this strap, so it's a little bit more utility, a little bit more technology, so it takes it to a little bit of a new place. The other one was an NBA story, so it was just integrating simply NBA, some team colorways onto the shoe in a very subtle way. And then the right one was woman specific, and it was more of a color material play plus the sole of the shoe was raised a little bit higher. So the first one was super fun. Obviously, the key part of the shoe is the strap, right? So we were like, okay, that's the strap. Let's do something with the strap. And then the other part was obviously, we take the basketball, we took the hoop. You're taking the concrete from the, court, the outside court. It was basically like this is the strap that holds it all together. And we created this little visual that kind of brings it together. And it was really fun to do it. And this is a little bit of a video version of like how like everything basically almost comes together. So it was really fun. And then these were all the posters that were connected to the image. So there was like the full visual center of the story. If you were in some store, this is one of the options that you would see. You could have a pedestal on it, or you could have multiple, you could have mannequins. So we would basically provide options on how you can set up your store, and everybody would, go their own way. But we would create different options for, if you're investing big on doing a fancier one, then you have more options to, build or create, or you can just take the existing assets and simply just either print them out or play the video, etc. And then in terms of like extending that storyline into the retail environment, you can see like you take the strap and you apply it as like element that pulls things together or ties the structure together. And then you take a little bit of the concrete. It doesn't have to be broken like in that piece, but it's still used as a device of elevation. Footwear pedestal, in obviously working at Nike, that's always one piece that you create, and I think it's always really fun because it's your opportunity to see the shoe and that little storytelling at the same time in one place. So this was that idea of like the straps and the rocks coming together, as well as this version where you can hang from the ceiling, and again get that strap and the concrete connection. And then this is how you would see it in the rest of the store environment. Add another random project in there. This is one of my silly personal projects. This is a PowerPoint deck, and it's fun to make. I try to do these like I have like also roller coasters, which are coasters that say roller on them. So it's like there's a few of these things that I do every once in a while. And then the second one, this was the NBA story. I don't know if you guys know Deez and Mero. They're comedians. They have their own show. Born and raised New Yorkers, big time Knicks fans. They're extremely funny. I don't know if you're basketball fans. I'm a Knicks fan, but Knicks suck. But I think it's if you're a fan, it's good for you. It's character building. You learn to lose, and you learn to support the team that loses. It's not gonna suck forever. And they've actually been all right this year. But it's fun to hear them talk about it too, because they're lifelong fans, and it's really interesting. Like one of the interviews, one of them said, actually, I force my kids to watch it because life's not fair. That's what it's like, and it's beautiful. It's true, So anyway, that's like we shot them. Aesthetically, the fun part was we photographed them, and then we gave it to. This was Eric Hu's idea. Super incredibly talented Eric Hu, and he said like we should do them airbrushed, and these are all actually airbrushed by an artist, so they're not like there's nothing digital about it. It was both beautiful in terms of the photography of the portraits and showing the still life of the product as well. And again, it was also Eric's idea. It was like, it would be really interesting if, we always show the shoe on feet or on its own. Like, what if it's a part of the portrait, like carrying it proudly, that's your team's, So it was a fun idea. And this was all the assets coming together. Everybody was like, there's, connected to either the city and the team. This was, he's the DJ of Golden State. So he's always there, and he was so excited to be a part of the project, which, those things make it actually really beautiful. And like we did an interview with him, and it's so fun. Like when he tells something about the team, it's so genuine, and he's so excited. It just, it just completes, the story basically. And then last part was obviously like this was the beautiful photography and the beautiful storytelling. Not everyone can get it just by looking at this image.
Like I always say, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. No matter how bad the Knicks are, we're still tuning in. I'm still eating my hot wings. I'm still
myself like bouncing the ball in my living room. Like it's wild.
It sounds sick. Being a Knicks fan is still fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, we did these little video pieces, little interviews. These were just small teasers. I don't know if the videos are still online, but just created some story around like the fans and how they approach the sport. And then the last one, this is Georgia Smith. She's a singer from UK, and we worked with her for creating the campaign for the women's specific AJ1. And I mean, the funny thing is that you can see how different it looks and feels from everything else, but also, you can see the concrete reference, but how it's played differently for a different product and a different consumer. So it's the same shoe, but both the product is slightly distorted, has a different take on it, and then even the simple footwear pedestal has a little bit of that like glossy material that reflects and is, has this beautiful color to it, but you still connect it to the concrete. and the structure is also kind of similar but slightly elevated in a different way. Joke time. Well, not really, actually. This is not a joke. I'm Turkish, and if you find this presentation weird, I think you can refer back to this slide later. As you can see, there's all these languages, and all the, like, how you say banana in those languages is banana, 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 muz. I'll leave it at that. Again, the same idea of the footwear pedestals. You know, just think of the first one with the concrete. Like, this is like the similar vibe to it, but feels slightly different. I thought this one was really beautiful. Dawn Giara in our team worked on this one, and she did a really beautiful job of creating these. Again, like, it's just that it's the same idea, but applied in a very fresh way. So it looks really fun. And then same thing, you can see the same structures, but just through change of colors, materials, and textures, it just gets a whole other thing. And it becomes a big part of our job. Obviously, you know, you have the retail environment. There's some existing frames and structures, but how you can play with it becomes the fun or interesting part. And that was the little posters, the series of posters that we created for it. And then just add a random story. Basically, you know, part of creating a presentation like this is going through, like, you know, your archives, and sometimes you run into funny things. So I added some. I'm a big car fan. Ettore Bugatti, apparently, at some point, he designed his own table setting. So also designed the cutlery as well, which is also amazing. But he designed, like, he sketched out, like, this is how things should stand, you know? And I just think that's really interesting to go that deep into that. That's one thing. And then the other part was a fun story that they tell about him is, like, if you want to buy his car, he would invite you to dinner. And if he doesn't like the way you eat, he wouldn't sell you the car, which is funny. Anyway, now we're done with this kind of series of projects that were kind of connected, the Air Force One story. And then the heartwarming one. After my sportswear role, I worked with the editorial team telling stories. And sometimes it was product stories, sometimes it was people stories. And this one was a super special one. This is the Sam Jackson and team, and his team worked with us on this project. It's so amazing. So this is a team called Carta Blanca in Mexico. And they've been playing together for 67 years. And we named the project Hoops Abuelas, but the team is named Carta Blanca. This is the full team. Their range, the age range is, higher, 70 to, like, I think there was a few people at 90, over 90. And then there's some younger ones too. But it's fascinating, they're a lovely, lovely group of people. They always play basketball together. Some of the aged ones, even if they don't play, they still go and be there with the team. And it was a beautiful sports story to tell. So we basically went there and did this production and shoot a short 10-minute video. It's on, you can find it on YouTube if you want to watch it. But they basically did a photo series and a video with them. And this is one of the best parts of our job, to meet these people and hear these stories, visiting them in their home. This is just a few sections from the video. I thought this is all I can share within this time frame. But yeah, it's amazing. And then the last thing from here, it's a fun one, is that's their cheer for their team, which is amazing. Again, so that was a very different type of project from all the other ones. I think that's part of what I want to show, like the range of work that we do and the range of people that we speak to or speak with. is huge, and it's, it organically takes different shapes, different aesthetics, and different tones. And then the last one that I'll share, I think this was on the posters, so I thought it is appropriate to share this work. But this was an apparel project for a line called Tech Pack. And the brief was, what does the future of movement look like? And this was our own, it wasn't necessarily a brief, but internally the idea was, what if Kubrick shot it, what would it look like? And a little shout out to Andrea Simmons, who was the art director on the project, who actually, was day-to-day fighting on this one and did an incredible job. This was the logo of the project, which we had created before this project. The 14, 9, 11, 5 is the number of the letter in alphabet, so N-I-K-E, Nike. 14 is N, 9 is I, etc. So there was a little code way of saying Nike in there. This was a really interesting project. The product was really futuristic, and it had a lot of like technological bonding seams, so many things that were unique about it. And again, like thinking about it from, what if Kubrick shot it, created this space that was in a grid structure in this infinite looking space. The product included running gear, training gear, and lifestyle gear. So this is, you're going to see a little bit of everything. This was the running one. This was the training gear, and this was the lifestyle gear. And then we worked with a studio, a photographer in a studio. The idea was to create this distortion. This work is from 2019. It was just around the time face filters were becoming a thing. They weren't quite yet as big as they became later on. But this was we were looking into what either makeup or aesthetics will look like in the future, and this is where we landed. And it created a very unique look and feel, even though this product line has been running for a year, I was just checking, and like when you look for a campaign, this is the one that shows up. This was the men's training one, another running version. And then it was really nice to obviously see these images out in the world as well, because they worked really well in these big formats. Another random thing that I've inserted, have you guys ever thought about, if you're in Antarctica, which time zone would you be in? It's so cool that like somebody made up this random rule that you end up being in one time zone, but technically it doesn't work that way. Anyway, this is one of the random things that I collect that I've thrown in here. I find it really interesting, so just I was putting in photos from around the world, so I thought time zone reference would be appropriate. This was in New York, so it's like showing some of the images around the world. And then again, like it was fun to create this inside of a store as well. This was roughly around the same time as the Air Max campaign, so it's actually aesthetically, we thought it would be appropriate because they will kind of sort of fit together visually, which I think they did. And then we want to create that environment of the photo studio a little bit in the space too. So when you show the mannequins, you can show that they're running and training and like all the dimensions of the product in one space. And this is what it looked like from outside. This is what it looked like in store. And this is, I just wanted to show one process image in there too. So to show like how, we prepare for it long before. Like we deliver these campaign assets, at least 6 months before the product launches, sometimes way before. We're coming to the end of the presentation. Let's get the harpsichord thing out of the way. So the harpsichord thing has nothing to do with anything. It's just this chart. So as you can see, the harpsichord sales between 1600 and 2010, there's a strange spike in the 50s and 70s. I'm not kidding. I found this JPEG, found it interesting, and saved it in Saturday, July 16, 2011. And it's been sitting in my computer since then, and I've done nothing about it. But I thought this is the special occasion to show you guys. But also, this is the special occasion to actually look into what happened there. Something did happen. In 60s and 70s, harpsichord was used by groups including Beatles, Beach Boys, Rolling Stones, Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Kinks, Monkees, Partridge Family, Mamas and Papas, Simon & Garfunkel. I think that's enough. If nobody else used it, I think that's enough influence that to start some sort of spike. Also, if you've noticed it, there's a spike and the sales raised, but they're not telling how many they sold. Maybe they sold 2 and that's enough, you know? We don't know this. So it's like a vague chart. But the point is, I love that chart and now I can delete it. This is a fun part of the presentation. I thought, I only showed Nike work and I was like, well, I should show at least one other thing from before. And then I knew that we're going to be tight for time, so I said, you guys pick it. I have 2 options. So one of them is a logo that slowly dies, and the other one is an album that puts you to sleep. How do we do this? Random, one person quickly call it out. Sleepy album. Oh, we already missed it. Were you the first one? What? This is it. The logo was really good, I'm telling you. All right, so let's do the sleepy one. I'm manually skipping to the other one here. So this was a White and Candy project, and me and my team, we've only worked on designing an album cover. So I want to give you the clear context that there's a full Wyden team that worked on a lot of things, including this image. I'm just going to show you the whole thing so that you guys get the full idea and the full context. But I'm just showing the album cover as my work. But this was the idea. So the Squarespace came to Wyden Kennedy. They asked for a Super Bowl spot. And we said, how about instead of a Super Bowl spot, Jeff Bridges does an album. And it's called Sleeping Tapes, and it puts people to sleep. And he creates a Squarespace page, and then he does a Super Bowl ad about his Squarespace page. I'm grossly simplifying the process, but that's the idea. But Squarespace was on board, and this website was created called Dreaming with Jeff. We work with an amazing group of composers, and we actually created an album. And it's actually, I think it's really amazing because it's Jeff Bridges. Come on. I think it's available online. You can still go listen to it. Most of it is spoken word. There's some musical-ish bits, but he was super excited about it. He was calling us like, I went out last night with a recorder. He records like bugs in LA at night. It's amazing, you know. You could listen to these songs online, and then we created albums, and all the proceeds from the albums that were sold were going to go to his charity. So none of it was for profit in terms of selling the record, etc. Listening to it was amazing. So this was like the digital version of the record player, and then this was the album cover. And the cool detail is the typography that says Jeff Bridges Sleeping Tapes is his handwriting. He sent us some sketch at some point, and it had this noodly thing, and it was amazing. And we were like, "What is that?" And he was like, "Oh, that's my handwriting." And he's like, he was like, "I have a Wacom tablet," and apparently he has a tablet, and he was sketching out things and sending those. We were like, "Can you send us some? Can you write a couple of Jeff Bridges Sleeping Tapes?" And then this is one of them, and it's so beautiful. So that typography is from there. And the idea of obviously sleeping tapes, you basically roll out the sleeve, and then it goes to sleep. So that was the simple idea, and it was super fun. And then the typography on the record was rolling in so that if you look at it, you can fall asleep, you know? So it creates that effect. So that was like fun little detail. It was in Grammys. We didn't win, but I was just like, this is hilarious that it's even in there. But it was a really cool project. The same typographies were in the back as well. We actually did cassettes. I'm sure there's some Jeff Bridges fans out there who also still listen to cassettes, and they bought it. So that was really, really cool. And that's the album cover that puts you, album that puts you to sleep. I think that's. This was the Super Bowl spot. This is the amazing people at Wyden who came up with this idea, delivered on this. I'm taking zero credit for this. I'm just showing the larger context of the story and how lucky I am to work with these people. The idea was that, obviously, like during Super Bowl, all the ads are just, stuff's exploding, all these things are happening, and you're doing a, ad for sleeping tapes. We thought it'd be really funny if nothing happens for 30 seconds, and that's, it's calming and soothing in that craziness. So that was the idea. But then, the whole world built around it was super fun and engaging. That's it. So quickly going through the list, talked about the Eames thing. Didn't really talk about the beauty thing, but there's one last thing I think that I can talk about. Thought process, hopefully this gives a little bit of a frame of reference of how I think about my work or approach. I don't know why you'd listen to this talk, but hopefully you did. I mean, harpsichord thing, come on, guys. It's so good. And then obviously, like we covered some Nike work. That was, that's done. Definitely sprinkled some random things. Background, definitely talked about it. Covered the harpsichord thing. What does it all mean? I don't know. But people usually finish presentations with a fancy quote. I'm finishing mine with fancy pigeons. I know it kind of looks like his head is chopped off, but it's not. This is a Bokhara trumpeter. Google it right now if it's like they're amazing. This is how they look like. Super beautiful. There's another one called Chinese owl. Again, that's how they are. It's so crazy. And then the last one here, the Jacobin. Again, I guess this is maybe the beauty page where I talk about the Feynman thing. If you remember it, if you Google Feynman and beauty, there's a little YouTube video. It's just the most beautiful explanation of how to approach beauty and connects to nature, etc. It's really good. So that's maybe that connection. And then this joke-like thing leads me to my last page. Which is a quote from my daughter. She said this to me quite recently, actually, in the last few months. I don't know the exact date. But I was looking at it, and I kept looking at it, and I realized it's an anagram for Enjoy Eucharoid Visigoth. How about that? Thank you. Do I go over there now? It'll end eventually.
John, thank you. This was great.
How did I do with time?
You're a little. Oh wow, you're quite over actually. We'll keep
Sorry,
it short.
guys.
So I mean, what have gone through my mind listening to these, especially the first really ambitious OU project, like how many stakeholders, how many people you have to onboard during the process, and I mean convince them about this weird idea, right? You don't just go and say just do it. Sorry, guys. I had to squeeze it
God.
somewhere. So how's that process of bringing people on board? And also, even with that, Squarespace work, which is an outside client. Can you just talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, I mean, on the Nike side, we're such a big team. There's so many people. I think even the word convince, I think, doesn't immediately create the feeling that you're trying to change someone's mind. I usually try to approach it that in the way that I think they will agree with this. This is an amazing idea. So I assume they're already on board. And obviously also like I always asking and learning their opinions way early in the process. Because I think, I mean, I learned so much. I'm still learning so much. It's not easy. There's so many different consumers, so many different countries, so many different people, so many different legal rules, so many different challenges, and everybody comes from a different background, different place, then different learnings. So I don't think anybody's out there to kill my idea or wants not to be convinced. I think it's just about sharing and understanding, and then trying to find that mutual ground. Again, it's funny to present work like this. It's obviously so much work, and I influenced some of it, but again, like there's influence of so many other people equally, and embracing that I think becomes a huge part of it too. And the Wyden ones is like that too. The Squarespace one, again, like I was the head of design, so I was working on specifically designing the album and then the website look and feel, etc. But Super Bowl ad, I had nothing to do with it, but my good friends who work on it, so we did it all together and we're in the calls together. Those are obviously more interesting because first you have to approach the client. If you work with someone like Jeff Bridges, then you have to see what they think, and you have to have your backup scenarios, and because this one was really crafted for Jeff Bridges. I don't know who else would do sleeping tapes and could get away with it. So yeah, that has all other sets of challenges to it.
Okay, thank you. Great. I mean, one thing when we were talking before is this year we are doing there's a lingering theme on Insights. We ask people to talk and think a little bit about identity, right? So the work you've shown tonight, the Nike work especially, you have shown so many versions of the Nike brand. So the question is, do you think Nike has like a consistent brand, or does consistency is not even relevant?
I mean, I think at the highest level is the most consistent brand. Everybody will immediately know the logo. Everybody immediately know 1 or 3 or 4 or 5 shoe boxes that your shoe is most likely going to arrive in. You can probably picture the shopping bag, So it is in that way extremely consistent. But that said, it's a very cultural brand, and the products place in very different very different people wear them very different reasons, style them very differently. They mean different things to different people. So it's impossible to create one look and feel or pick one color and want it to be, received well by everyone, Like I can't imagine, trying to sell just an orange shoe and expect everyone to be into orange shoes, So at that moment, the shoe starts looking different. And then once the shoe starts looking, then the campaigns and the look and feel, and, then style gets involved. And then there's lots of little pockets of aesthetics and art direction, which is what I showed earlier. So in that sense, the highest level, extremely consistent. But then when it goes down to seasons, to product, then there's millions and millions of little worlds underneath it. And do they need to be consistent with one another? I think the Air Force One example is probably a good one. There was a stripe, there was like the concrete, there's similar pieces and languages, but then that's it. The rest of it, you play around, have fun, and tell the story of what was the reason behind creating that product that way,
I really especially like how the pedestals become these instruments to tell the very little story on the moment physically, which then turns into something digital, etc., etc. So there's so many touch points. Thank you. So let's have a couple of questions, then we go out and mingle a little bit. How about that?
Is there a microphone or?
Yeah, they are coming.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Thank you. That was incredible. I found your work so evocative, and a lot of the examples in it showed were from the product side. And I was just thinking how you think and engage, with the people, like you said, for whom these products mean a lot, and how they express themselves.
So there's different versions of it. One of them is we basically always do studies, the insight studies. We have a big insights team, and there's the more structured and organized version of it for getting where, how do they feel? What are they interested in? That's one part of it. Two is sometimes we do market travel, as in we'll do trips into different cities in different countries, and there we'll do a lot of in-person engagement. So we'll, and some of them are a little bit more formal, and sometimes it's more casual conversations and just, going to the stores, or, asking our friends to, bring a group of people together and, learning about what they feel. And does that help? Is that what you're asking? Or do you mean, is it, so obviously there's also things like when we use, when we work with people, as in Abuelas, we'll find a story and we'll go work with them. That's a whole different level of engagement, obviously, because then we're there together for a while and we get to, learn their stories a little bit deeper.
Okay. We have one on the second row. There you go.
Hey, my name is Temi. Hi, everybody. I wanted to thank you, Sheriff, for pulling up to our small corner of the world and dropping some dimes on us today, and sharing your process. But into that process, I kind of want to see when you're like building out a promotional deck or like a campaign deck from order of importance to least important, how are you building it out?
A great question. I think depends on the scale, but let's talk about maybe I'll give you the most difficult one is that air one, because it was that one was, I think, over 300 pages or something like that. It was huge because there's so many elements to it, right? There's the little campaigns, the little jokes, all that stuff, and then the hero product image. So the way we would do it is, one, it'll be by timeline. So if there's multiple product drops in different dates, so it'll be by date, so that when you receive it on the other end, the most important thing for you is like, oh, my deadline is February 12th. So then you'd go to that, and for that date, it'll say, this is the hero campaign asset. This is the secondary asset. So it'll be the first one would be assets. By the way, this is what I present. Most of the work I presented is like pre-pandemic type of stuff. Like some of it still continues, but the world is changing massively. So some of it, maybe it's a little different now. Right now, I'm in the product team, so I don't do that stuff as much these days. I'm doing more on the product side. But what you would do is like, what is the thing that you want everyone to see first? Is the one that you show them first. Like, this is the one that you will use. These are the supporting elements. These are the sizes, formats. These are the copy. This is the main copy. These are the explanation, etc. And then you would go into, this is how you do retail. If you do out of home, as in digital, etc., this is how you apply it. So you basically go in order of exposure and order of visibility, and just explaining clearly, like, this is the thing that we want everyone to see. And then this is the cool little detail. If somebody catches it, that's cool, but it's not the end of the world if they don't see it. So prioritizing first by date and second by visibility, I guess.
Okay, let's have one last one. You. point at someone.
I saw someone.
Okay.
So working for a company like Nike, you're tasked with a very interesting challenge of making the trends and like designing things that haven't been done before, rather than following, the footsteps of others. And I was just kind of curious, how do you imagine something that doesn't exist, or how do you continue to innovate? Have you cracked the code and have a methodology that guarantees success, or does the inspiration really vary project to project? Or is there a system or a set of things that you do to help encourage it, at least, that's consistent?
There's a little bit of both. I think that a very, very good question. Thank you. And it's always a struggle. We talk about this all the time, and it's interesting when you have a lot of moments of innovation, of creating something iconic and new as never there before, and then some of them you have to keep doing, but then you have to do the new one. So you almost have to do both. I'm just gonna tell my personal point of view on it is, I think if I'm trying to innovate, I try to not look at anything that's done in the past, because I think the moment you look at a previous innovation moment that was done at that time, in those circumstances, in that environment, with those people, with that size of the company, with that budget, it's very specific. So reverse engineering that in future, again, my personal take, is not really possible. So instead, just cutting that out and really, thinking what you need to do. I think that's the only way to look at future and what needs to happen, and then obviously, I think no matter how much you innovate, you need to be inspired and you need to have like touch points. So I think it's also constantly doing research and constantly being open-minded and, checking out the harpsichord sales and, how they're doing in the 2020s. But yeah, I think it's just like, I think it comes down to like being able to be open-minded. There's some things like Air Force One, that's, there's still little things change and little innovations made, material change, etc. But Air Force One is Air Force One. So I think just being understanding of like where you innovate, where you explore versus where you build on an existing system is it has to coexist basically.
John, thank you so much. This has been great, right?
Thank you, guys.
And thank you all for joining us. It was lovely to see you.